Guten Tag, Deutsch 1. Heute beginnen wir die dritte Stufe von der 7. Einheit. Es heißt Empfehlungen und Erfahrung. Empfehlungen bedeutet Recommendations und Erfahrung bedeutet Experience. So, wir stellen Fragen wie ist die Atmosphäre im Restaurant? Oder wie ist die Bedienung? Bedienung heißt die Kellner, die Kellnerinnen, so the waitstaff, the service. Und wie schmeckt das Essen und wie sind die Preise im Restaurant? Hier sind unsere Lernziele. So, wir können verstehen und auch darüber sprechen, wo wir waren, in welchem Restaurant, was wir gegessen haben, was wir getrunken haben, wie alles war, wie die Atmosphäre und wie die Bedienung war. Und wir können dann verstehen und auch selber schreiben, eine Kundenerfahrung, Customer Review. Und wir können auch selber empfehlen, was wir in einem Restaurant gern essen und trinken. Okay, so zuerst brauchen wir Vokabelwörter, über eine Erfahrung im Restaurant zu sprechen. So, wann warst du im Restaurant und wie war alles? So if we were in class, we would be brainstorming in groups, but I want you to just pause the video for just a second and brainstorm on your own here. Welche Adjektive haben wir für die Bedienung und für die Atmosphäre? So think of adjectives we've already learned this year, positiv und negativ, that could describe service at a restaurant or the atmosphere at a restaurant. Welche Adjektive haben wir schon für Preise, for prices? Und gibt es auch andere Adjektive? So take a minute to just think and maybe make a list on your paper and then I'll show you some. So here's what we've got here for die Bedienung. So höflich is polite, freundlich, friendly, schnell, fast or quick. Hilfsbereit literally means ready, bereit is ready, and then hilfs from help, so ready to help. Hilfreich, we've had before for helpful. Remember, it looks like help rich. Auf der negativen Seite, obviously we could have unhöflich, rude or impolite, oder langsam, if something's slow. Die Atmosphäre, I've got elegant, raffiniert. Raffiniert is neu. We haven't had this one before, but raffiniert would be refined. Exklusiv, exclusive. Romantisch hatten wir schon. Locker, locker would be laid back, easygoing. Lässig, casual. Gemütlich is a way to say comfortable that works with spaces. We've learned bequem before, but that's more for like touching and feeling something. But if you think like a space or an area is comfortable or cozy, you could say gemütlich. Angenehm, pleasant. Und familienfreundlich, family friendly. Here are several of those that we just mentioned in case you missed any. And then how can we talk about Preise? So we could say billig oder günstig. Remember, those are for cheap or affordable. Preiswert, it literally means price worthy, worth the price. So it's a good price, it's a good value. Also generally seems affordable. Teuer, expensive. Andere Wörter, die für Restaurants wichtig sind sauber. Sauber bedeutet clean und schmutzig, dirty. Definitely wouldn't want to go somewhere if it was schmutzig. So Empfehlungen, recommendations. So how do we do recommendations? We've got a couple verbs here, a couple new verbs that you'll see on your Vokabelblatt. Empfehlen is one of them. Empfehlen is to recommend. So was empfiehlst du is what do you recommend. Now you'll already probably notice right here that we have a Vokalwechsel, a stem change, okay? So it is ich empfehle, but in the du and the er is yes form, we have an extra I added in there, so it becomes du empfiehlst und empfiehlt. And then remember, our plural forms are always going to be regular. So wir empfehlen, ihr empfehlt, sie empfehlen. The next verb is vorschlagen, which also means to suggest. So it's really similar to recommend. This is to suggest. And you'll notice it's a separate prefix verb. So schlagen actually means to hit. And then vor is like in front or before. And so it's kind of like, I remember it by thinking like if you take something and you hit it down right before somebody, you're saying, here it is, here's my suggestion. So, was schlägst du vor? What do you suggest? Ich schlage, and then you could put something there, vor. Notice this one also has ein Vokalwechsel from schlagen to du schlägst and schlägt. So I could say, was empfiehlst du? And you could answer, ich empfehle den Hamburger mit Süßkartoffelpommes. I could say, was schlägst du vor? And you could say, ich schlage den Salat und die Hühnchennudelsuppe vor. And then what that would be called would be your Empfehlung, die Empfehlung, or your Vorschlag, der Vorschlag. So now, nehmt ein Blatt Papier und ein Bleistift und wir beschreiben unser Lieblingsrestaurant. So beschreib, wie das Restaurant heißt, wie in Nummer 1 hier, wie die Atmosphäre ist, wie die Bedienung ist und was du dort empfiehlst. Pause your video and take a moment to write out these 4 sentences, and then I'll give you an example of what I could say. So here's what I would say for mine. I would say, mein Lieblingsrestaurant ist Bayleaf Indian Cuisine. Die Atmosphäre ist lässig, locker und gemütlich. Die Bedienung ist schnell und sehr freundlich. Und ich empfehle den Mango Lassi und die Hühnchenkadai. So this is great when we're just talking about our favorite restaurant. Aber für eine richtige Kundenerfahrung brauchen wir auch, so eine Kundenerfahrung is a customer review. Well, if you're really going to write a customer review, you might need to actually use some past tense. So I want to give you a little intro to the past tense, and we're not going to expect that just from this little clip in this video that you'll be able to use past tense in all situations without having any kind of mistakes or errors. We're going to practice this a ton, and especially at the beginning of German 2, you're going to spend lots of time really getting used to and getting comfortable with the past tense. But it's good to go ahead and get an intro now so you can understand it and start to use it a little bit. So the first thing we're going to get is the simple past or Präteritum of the word sein or to be. So in English we go from be to was. In German it's from sein to waren. So if you just want to say I was, it's ich war. You were, du warst. He was, war. We were, wir waren. Y'all were, ihr wart. They were, or you formal were, sie waren. So looking at these, you'll notice that it also takes our modified S1010. Notice that ich and RZS do not have any endings, but the rest of the S1010 endings are on there. So these modified endings are actually the strong verb or irregular verb endings in simple past in German. So try it on your own paper here. Pause the video, write what you would put in each blank, and then I'll show you the correct answers. All right, here's your correct answers. Check and see if you could identify the subject correctly, and then look up in the chart and you should see that those are the forms that go with it. What if you're trying to say what you or someone else had? Then you need the Präteritum or simple past of haben, which is pretty easy. It just goes to hatten, which sounds a lot like had. So here are our forms. Now, this looks a little different from our forms of waren because it follows the German simple past endings for weak or regular verbs. And so we see that those are te, test, te, ten, tet, ten. And so basically when we're looking at these, since this is our first simple past regular or weak verb to have, the only difference we see here that looks really different from what we've been doing with our regular S1010 is that the RZS ending just has an E and there's no T on there. So that's really the easiest way to remember it. So now on your notes or on your piece of paper you were working on, try these out. Now you'll notice here it's not just forms of hatten. We've got had, was, had, and was. So check your subjects and see if you can fill in the correct answer, and then pause the video and look back for the answers. Okay, here are the answers. Ich hatte das Wurstbrot, es war sehr lecker. Michael hatte die Lasagne, sie war leider nicht sehr gut. If the Z here confused you, the Z here was referring to die Lasagna. And so it's saying it was unfortunately not very good. So those two verbs are very useful for saying, I was or I had, but most of the time in past tense, Germans don't use the simple past, which is just one word, one verb form. They usually use what's called the present perfect tense. And even though you call it the present perfect tense, it's still a past tense form. So the present perfect tense, some people call this the conversational past for German, because generally when they're talking, they use present perfect. So what does the present perfect look like in English? So basically the present perfect tense, it has a present tense form of have, and then it has a past participle with it. That's actually why they call it the present perfect, because it has a present tense helping verb in there. So we would say something like, I have bought bread, and that's the present perfect tense. The simple past would have just been simple, one word, I bought bread, right? And you just have bought instead of have bought. So in German, it's actually pretty much the same thing. The present perfect tense is formed with a form of haben or sein as the conjugated verb, and that's going to go second, obviously. Our conjugated verb always does. And then it's going to be paired with a past participle that's going to go in last position. So for instance, ich bin zu Moos gegangen is I have gone to Moos. Now notice it says ich bin, which is I am. I am gone to Moos. We'll get more into that in German too, but basically if you're talking about motion from one point to another point, you use a form of sein, but with pretty much all other verbs, you're just going to use a form of haben. So usually, and for what we're going to talk about in this unit, you're going to be saying ich habe. For instance, ich habe einen Burrito gekauft. I have bought a burrito. Es hat lecker geschmeckt. It has tasted delicious. So you'll notice that just like when we used our modal verbs and we talked about having your conjugated modal verb second and an infinitive last, that same pattern of second and last for our verbs is going to work with our past tense here. Conjugated verb second, past participle last. So how do you make these past participles? Well, the past participle for regular or weak verbs is going to have a GE in it, as you saw in the examples. Then it's going to have the verb stem and then the letter T at the end. If it's an irregular verb or a strong verb is what we call those, a verb that has like a stem vowel change in it somewhere, then you're going to have a GE and then the verb stem and then an EN ending. Now, be aware though, sometimes there's already a prefix there, and if it's an inseparable prefix, then the GE isn't going to go on the front. So, probier es aus. On your paper, try it out. See if you can form a past participle made out of these verbs we already know. So pause the video, and then once you're done, restart it to check your answers. So here's our answers. So kaufen becomes gekauft, spielen, gespielt, tanzen, getanzt, schauen, geschaut, schmecken, geschmeckt, besuchen, besucht. That's because the BE is an inseparable prefix. If you've got an inseparable prefix, the GE doesn't go on there. Now you'll notice over here all of them have EN because they're all strong verbs. So they either have a stem change in the present tense or in the past tense somewhere, but something makes them irregular. So fahren becomes gefahren, sehen, gesehen, bekommen, bekommen. See how it has the BE inseparable prefix, so there's no GE on there. Essen, this one's kind of funny because you would think it would be geessen, but that'd be kind of hard to say and kind of hard to read. So instead it becomes gegessen, just so that you can hear everything. Trinken becomes getrunken, and nehmen becomes genommen. So you see sometimes you have a stem change in that past participle form. So wichtige Vokabel für die Vergangenheit. When we're talking about die Vergangenheit, which is the past, we have some phrases we may want to use. So gestern, vorgestern, letztes Wochenende, letzten Montag, vor 2 Wochen, letzte Woche, und letzten Sommer. I bet you can already figure out what those mean. Here are the definitions, and ein Beispiel. Wo warst du im Urlaub letzten Sommer? Where were you on vacation last summer? So you can use any of these time phrases. I could say, letzte Woche war ich in Chick-fil-A, oder Vor 2 Wochen war ich in Olive Garden. So now I want y'all to try a couple of sentences using these past participles that would be really helpful in giving restaurant reviews. So generally, we're just going to be using haben because most of them don't have to do with motion. But if you did want to say I drove somewhere or I went somewhere, then you could use sein with gefahren or gegangen. So try these out, and then I'll show you what the right answers are. So we visited the new restaurant for dessert. This one, instead of saying just we visited, which would be simple past, we want to put it into the perfect. So we're going to say we have, and then visited is going to go at the end. So wir haben das neue Restaurant zum Nachtisch besucht. So we have, and see the visited at the very end? We have visited the new restaurant for dessert. Okay, I bought a cake. Instead of I bought a cake, just with the simple past, bought, we're going to say I have bought a cake. So ich habe einen Kuchen gekauft. My brother ate the cake. Instead of just having the simple past ate, we're going to go to the present perfect and say he has eaten the cake. So mein Bruder hat den Kuchen gegessen. My parents drank a cup of coffee. We can say meine Eltern, we want to say have drunk. So meine Eltern haben eine Tasse Kaffee getrunken. Okay, so now try it on your own and see if you can translate these sentences. That could be really useful in a Kundenerfahrung, a customer review. Pause the video and then restart it once you're done, and I'll show you the answers. All right, here's your answers. So das Restaurant hatte eine elegante Atmosphäre. Der Kellner war sehr freundlich. Die Nudelsuppe hat lecker geschmeckt. Ich habe eine Tasse Kaffee getrunken und ein Stück Kuchen gegessen. Es hat 12 Euro gekostet. So notice that most of the time we're using a form of haben with a past participle ge something at the end. The only times when you don't do that in spoken German is when you're just saying something had or something was or someone was. All right, now as I said, don't panic that this is a lot of new information and maybe seems a little bit complicated. In Deutsch 2 lernen wir mehr über die Vergangenheitsformen. We're going to do a lot more practice with past tense in German too. Danke für das Zuschauen. Bis das nächste Mal. Tschüss.